We continue with our comparison of the two religions, that is Buddhism and Jainism. We have seen a few points continuing from where we left, that is with regard to the literal meaning of what is Buddhism. Those who follow the teachings of Buddha, they are called Buddhist, and then to become, or the Jainism, those who are going to become Jina or liberated soul by following the teachings of 24 Tirthankaras. So in Jainism we can see it is not the one person or one founder or behind it. Rather there are 24 of them. That is, they are called Tirthankara, or those who have made the crossing of the river, or those who have become the Jina or the victors. And this 24 of them, they have contributed to the building up of Jainism. Mahavira happened to be the 24th one, and somehow, or maybe by mistakenly, everything is dedicated to him. Of course, the present state or stage of Buddhism, or the Jainism, has been shaped by Mahavira, adding one more, that is Mahavrita, to the existing four, one left by Parshva. And thus, the present stage of Jainism we have, or we are dedicated to, or we are indebted to Mahavira, Gautama Mahavira, and then here the Buddhism what we have is the one founder, that is Gautama Buddha. So this, from the literal meaning we go to the means of salvation. Whether that word has got any meaning at all in Buddhism. So salvation has very little to do with Buddhism. All what their goal is nirvana. The goal in Buddhism is to attainment of nirvana. To do this, we should let go our desires, cravings and attachments, and to try to dispel ignorance. So according to Buddhism, the cause of our attachment to the worldly things or the phenomenal world is due to ignorance. So what we need to dispel is that ignorance. So our attachment, we have to let go our desires, cravings, attachments, and to try to dispel ignorance. The reason for your attachment is because of your ignorance, or the craving for things or positions or places, that is due to your ignorance only. So that's what we need to dispel, and when the moment of enlightenment comes, you will be able to really understand the true nature of the phenomenal world. And all the exercises which are told there, or the Ashtanga Marga, is in a way to get over the ignorance or dispel the ignorance, and try to detach yourself from the attractions of the phenomenal world, because you are coming to know the true nature of things. The true nature of the phenomenal world according to Buddhism is impermanency and insubstantiality, and it's at momentariness, nothing other than that. So for them, everything is momentary, or from moment to moment only the existence, and there isn't anything which is permanent according to Buddhism, not even the self. Anatma, or the impermanency of the soul, is a major argument of Buddhism. Now what about Jainism? What is the goal of Jainism? According to Jainism, the nature, the soul, which is maybe through the attachment, it has accumulated a lot of karmas, and because of that it is veiled existence of the soul, and this is to be shaken out, and that is going to be the process. So in Jainism, the goal is to unshackle the soul from bondages of karma, which results in misery due to many rebirths and deaths. Once the soul is freed from these bondages, it achieves nirvana and becomes a perfect soul free from attachments in an internal blissful state. So for Jainism, the reinstatement of the original status of the soul, that is the nirvana for them. And then that blissful state where perfect knowledge, vision, bliss, and all the power that is to be reinstated in that stage. So that is going to be the nirvana for them. For Buddhism, it is going to be putting an end to all your cravings, desires, and attachments, and then you try to dispel the ignorance, then you reach the stage of nirvana. So the means of salvation, the word salvation perhaps doesn't apply to, as we would say, the attainment of heaven or being deported into hell. That concept is not the one, whereas the goal which they have is the attainment of nirvana, a state, that means a reinstatement of or a soul which is going to enjoy or remain in a state where no more karmic principles are going to get attached to that, or no more in coming into the circle of birth, death, rebirth, and it goes on and on. So that you are free from. That will be the means of salvation, or the goal to be achieved both in Buddhism and in Jainism. We go to the next concept or comparison, in the point of comparison regarding what about the gods, the concept of God. Is there any reference made to that? A god or gods have always been rejected by Theravada or the Hinayana tradition. So for them, they do not accept the concept of a creator God, or who has the overall power, or omnipotent God who controls everything. So that concept do not exist in Buddhism. The only refuge they have, or they often repeat, are the three jewels, that is Buddham Sharanam, Dharmam Sharanam, and Sangham Sharanam. So these are the three jewels constantly repeated, or they chant this. So often remind them what is their recourse or the refuge. I take a refuge in Buddha, I take a refuge in Dharma, I take a refuge in Sangha. So that is the only refuge they have. So the concept of God, what other religion has got, that do not come in Buddhism. What about Jainism? Whatever it has, it got any concept of God? No creator God, as there are in other religion where a God creates, sustains, destroys, and he is all in all. That concept do not find any meaning in Jainism. Rather, godliness is the inherent quality of any soul, characterizing infinite bliss, power, perfect knowledge, and perfect peace. One who achieves this state by breaking all the karmas, all the karmic principles, they are going to be, or they are called, or can reach that stage of liberation and free from rebirths, and termed as God. So the term God, rather than God, they would apply the godliness, that is in Jainism. That is the inherent quality of any soul, characterizing infinite bliss, power, vision, knowledge, and peace. And one who achieves this state by breaking the bonds of karma and liberation from rebirths can be termed as God. So if at all a God concept, then this is the only one. So the God concept, the other one, that is of Buddhism, we have the Arhas and Bodhisattva ideal. Only those two are there. No concept of a God. And you don't have to pray to anybody, that is, they are going to come to your help us. It is not existing, neither in Buddhism nor in Jainism. So your attainment of the enlightenment or attainment of nirvana, it is something which you have to strive. So only a person can strive for that full, taking the course of the means that are proposed. In Buddhism, it will be the Ashtanga Marga, and in Jainism, by doing or the following the teachings of the 24 Tirthankaras and trying to reinstate the original state of the soul, that is perfect knowledge, vision, power and bliss. So that is going to be the original state. Once you reach that stage, then you continue to remain in that blissful state and not getting into again the circle of rebirths and death, and then goes on the circle of samsara. There is no more of that. So with regard to the concept of God, we can see there is some agreement. Both of them do not consider that a creator God concept is not there in Buddhism and Jainism. The precise reason why these both are categorized under the heterodox religion or that which is unorthodox. What about the status of women? That is going to be the next point of comparison. How do they consider the women? What status, what position the women have? In Buddhism, there is no gender bias in Buddhism. So, in the discourse related to householders named Thain Galwada, certain duties and obligations were mentioned and applied to specific gender, that is, duties of a husband to a wife and vice versa by the Buddha. So, there is no gender bias. You can be a monk or a nun with equal rights in Buddhism. No difference is made there. Whereas when it comes to Jainism, women can become nuns, but there is a difference when it is the two division of Jainism. One is that is Digambaras and Shvetambaras. So Digambara will hold that the women cannot be a true Jain, or they cannot attain salvation or attain nirvana on account of the fact that they are Digambara, they cannot go nude. So they can be only the group of the Shvetambaras. So according to Digambaras, that is a sky-clad group, only a person has to be reborn as a man in order to attain that nirvana or that pure stage of to reinstate the perfect state of the soul. So for them that is the liberation. So there is some difference we can find in the Jainism with regard to the women, the status of women, not fully integrated. Whereas Buddhism, there is no gender bias as such. Then with regard to the view of Buddha, what is the stand of Buddha in both? The founder of Buddhism, in Buddhism, he is the founder of Buddhism or the Four Noble Truths. The moment we hear about Buddhism or Buddha, immediately we think about the Four Noble Truths. So for the reason for which he spent his entire life in order to know why there is suffering in the world. That's what really made him to think about or spend his life, go about in search of an answer to the question which disturbed him all through his life, why there is suffering. And he went and kept on meditating, sat under the Bodhi tree to get enlightenment. At the moment he got enlightenment, he came to know the reasons for the suffering in the world, why there is sorrow. So the Four Noble Truths clearly states what are the reasons for this suffering stage of human being. In Jainism, Buddha is considered as a contemporary of Mahavir. He's a contemporary of Mahavira as the status of Buddha. So Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, and in Jainism he is considered as the contemporary of Mahavira. What are the definitions which we find in Buddhism and Jainism? In Buddhism, there is a teachings of the Buddha, and in Jainism, it will be the teachings of the Tirthankara, 24 Tirthankaras. So what they have left behind, the teachings on the moral code, how to, so the different aspects and how to observe the Mahavrata, Anuvrata, and the establishment of the 4 orders. That is monks, nuns, then lay person and lay man and lay woman. That's the order. The 4 orders of the Jainist order in order to become a Tirthankara. The difference between them and that is of the Kevalins are only that. That means the ordinary ones, they do not establish the 4 orders of the Jainism, whereas Tirthankaras, they, as soon as they attain the Kevala Jnana, then they begin to establish the 4-fold order of the Jainist the religion. Then another comparison is made on the concept of angels. What is the concept of angels? Is there anything? Maybe we can find that so many other religions have got this concept of angels. Here in Buddhism, we find there is absolutely no agreement on that. Whereas in Jainism, there is the concept of yakshas and yakshinis. They are celestial beings and heavenly beings who can aid and guide human upon invoking. But they are not considered God, and their worship is not encouraged, as they are not perfect souls and have not achieved nirvana. So this, in comparison to what we find in other religion, the Semitic religion, that is in Islam as well as Christianity, we will find that term angels very much associated, which we do not find in Buddhism. We don't, or they have no agreement, they don't accept. And what we find in Jainism is some similarity to that of the angels, that is Yakshaka and Yakshins. So they are celestial and heavenly beings who can aid and guide human beings upon invoking, but they are not gods. So there is no special power for them, or their worship is not encouraged in Jainism because they are not perfect souls and have not achieved nirvana. So they are on the process of achieving that. What is the concept of the human nature? That is the next point on which the comparison is made between Buddhism and Jainism. Human nature in Buddhism. Ordinary human beings possess greed, anger, delusion, ignorance, craving, etc. So human beings are defined in such a way. So they are the persons, ordinary human beings. They possess greed, anger, delusion, ignorance, and cravings. And they were compared by Buddha as the fools and the blind. So because this craving is the one which puts them into the bondage, they are not able to free themselves from the bondage of the phenomenal world, because the ignorance, they get attached themselves to this. And therefore, Buddha called them blind and fools. Ordinary human beings means those who haven't walked or not walking the eightfold path. That's a human. So they do not know. So they live in the blissful ignorance. And therefore, they will not get out of the circle of that samsara, or birth, death, rebirth. It goes on and on. And they are not in a position, because they are not walking in the path of the eightfold ways. So eightfold ways are going to be the one which is helping you to get out of this cyclic birth, death, rebirth. It goes on. So that is the term that is used in the or what is understood by the human nature. Ordinary human nature is defined in Buddhism as persons possessing greed, anger, delusion, ignorance, cravings, etc. So he has defined the human being as totally chasing after the desires. And why do you desire? Because of your ignorance. So what is the root cause of all the sorrow? Ignorance. Ignorance is the root cause of all the sufferings. What about Jainism? What is the human nature? Human suffering is due to negative effects of bad karma and excessive attachment to material aspects. So here in Jainism what we see, the soul that has got corrupted because of its undue attachment to, or it is a veiled existence for the soul. The original status of the soul is veiled due to the attachment a person, the human suffering is due to the negative effects or the bad karma and excessive attachment to material aspects. So that is the human nature considered in both. One is that of the Buddhism, the other is the Jainism. Then another comparison is made on the day of worship. Which day do the worship take place? Instead of worshipping, Buddhists pay obeisance to Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha. So for them, every community, that is Sangha is an important element in the Buddhist order, and therefore every Sangha, the constant repetition, recitation of the three jewels, that is Buddham Sharanam, Dharmam Sharanam, Sangham Sharanam, it is constantly repeated. So instead of paying or worshipping anybody, this is the obeisance they pay to the three Ratna, that is, or the three Ratna, that is Buddham, Buddha and Dharma and Sangha. Then day of worship in Jainism, no particular time, although morning is preferred for any rites. So here the two aspects what we find, there are some rituals are performed in Jainism, but that is the temple, Jaina temples, and their mornings preferably. What about the comparison based on scriptures? Do they have any scriptural basis? Tripitaka, that is the scripture for Buddhism, the vast volume of three main sections, that is the discourses, discipline and the absolute doctrine. So three sections of Tripitaka, a vast volume of three main sections, discourses, discipline and the absolute doctrine, which appeared only after the death of Buddha, thanks to the monks who collected all these teachings of Buddha. So that they are formed into the three Pitakas, or which is considered sacrosanctum for the Buddhist, that is the three Pitaka. And the religious scriptures called Agamas, many other canonical texts in Jainism. So Jainism has got the religious scriptures called Agamas, and many canonical texts are there in Jainism. The comparison made on the aspect of marriage. What about marriage? Has it got any relevance in Buddhism and Jainism? So what we are trying to see here is on various grounds trying to find out a comparison between both of them, that is Buddhism and Jainism, because these are contemporary religion, or the same time they have grown up. In Buddhism, marriage is seen as a social convention and mainly a personal and individual concern, not a religious duty. Advice in the discourse are on how to maintain a happy and a harmonious marriage. So it is seen as a social convention, and that is in Buddhism. In Jainism, marriage is a social convention and not linked to religions. So on certain aspect there is an agreement here, it's a social convention. But followers must strictly follow monogamy, monks though renounced material world. So monogamy is a must in Jainism. And here in Buddhism, it is seen as one of the social convention, and it's a personal and individual concern. Of course, some discourse in the in the advice given in the discourse, how to maintain a happy and harmonious marriage. Buddha has given certain discourse on that. Whereas in the Jainism, it is also considered as a social convention. Marriage is a social convention and not linked to religions, but followers must strictly follow monogamy. Then the comparison based on the rites, what are the generally common both in Buddhism and Jainism, generally common rites are followed. The followers of Buddha is called Buddhist, and followers of Jainism called Jains. So the two what we are comparing. Then religion which atheist still be adherents of. Can an atheist is a person who denies the existence of God. Can they be Buddhist or Jainist or Jains? Buddhists deny the existence of God or gods. So Buddhism is not a religion but the teachings of the Buddha. So following the teachings of Buddhism. Jains do not believe in the idea of a creator God. The laws resolve karma. Good karma leads to spiritual elevation, and bad karma and deeds to decline. So one, I think both, that is Buddhism and Jainism, both of them give value to the aspect of karma. It is karma which decides your further, that means the action. If the action is good, then the good fruits. So every action produces effect. If the good action, good effect. If it's a bad action, bad effect. So depending on, and that is going to be the very aspect of your karma. So we are trying to see whether atheist will be part of any of this, where Buddhism or Jainism. So Buddhists deny the existence of God or gods. So Buddhism is not a religion but the teachings of Buddha. Jains do not believe in a creator God. The law of karma resolves that. Good karma lead to spiritual elevation and bad karma to the spiritual decline. Then what is the goal of philosophy? So there is some teaching here in Buddhism and Jainism. So it is a philosophy. So Buddhism is, or the goal of philosophy, is it a philosophy or so what is it? Buddhism is not a philosophy, it is a practical teaching of Buddha, and its goal is nirvana. So instead of calling it a philosophy, they would rather say that it's a practical teaching of Buddha and the goal is nirvana. Jainism is a way of life. Adhere to teachings of Tirthankaras, respect all life forms and perfect souls have not achieved nirvana. So that is the aspect in Jainism. What is that? Is the Jainism is a way of life. Adhere to the teachings of the Tirthankaras. Respect all forms and end. Perfect souls, at the end, perfect souls have not achieved the nirvana. So that is going to be the way Jainism to visualize. That is about whether it is philosophy or what is it is going to be. The time of origin. What is the time of origin with regard to Buddhism and Jainism? Buddhism is said to be 2500 years ago, around 563, BCE. And then Jainism, very ancient, one of the oldest religions. The origins of the first Tirthankara is too ancient and obscure. Mahavir, the 24th Tirthankar, born in 599 BCE. So that is the time with regard to. Then there is a question about both of these, that is Buddhism and Jainism. It originated in India, but it couldn't survive much, especially Buddhism could not survive in India, although Jainism remained very much within. So what is the authority of Dalai Lama? He is a spiritual leader of Buddhism, and what is his role? Merely belonging to Tibetan Buddhism and has no relevance to Theravada Buddhism. So it is in Tibet that we find that is Dalai Lama, a great spiritual leader, world acclaimed spiritual leader, Dalai Lama, and he has got only relevance in Tibet Buddhism and no relevance to Theravada Buddhism. And in Jainism there is no particular relevance for Dalai Lama, not applicable. There isn't any much credence is given to Dalai Lama. Of course, Buddha is mentioned as a contemporary of Mahavir. Then with regard to the followers of the population, Buddhist population 300 to 450 million, but Theravada Buddhist 100 to 150 million only, and Jainism would be 50 to 60 million. Why the less number is because this is a severe, or the severity is so much, that is total ahimsa is one of the important observance in Jainism, that every Jain monk or the lay person, lay woman will have to observe that. That is a must for all the Jains, and therefore the number is very much limited, not very fast growing like Buddhism. There are so many people joining in the various types or different groups of Buddhist in different lands. They are spreading quite fast, whereas Jainism we don't find so many followers in Jainism. Then the use of statues, both in Buddhism and Jainism, they are used very often. What is the original language which is used in Buddhism and in Jainism? Original language is Magadha, language used during the lifetime of Buddha, which is a universal language understood all over the universe, that is Magadha. And in Jainism we have ancient texts were written in various languages, predominantly in Magadhi language, prevalent in the time of Mahavir and Buddha. So common language, that is Magadha or Magadhi, is the one which is being used. So far we have placed ourselves on various grounds of comparison. So further going through, we will see some of the similarities in Buddhism, and then the difference in Buddhism, and then we will try to conclude the chapter on the Jainism. So we are drawing a comparison to. The school of Buddhism evolved in the eastern part of India in 563 BCE. More or less at the same time, in around 550 BCE, another school, Jainism, with almost similar thoughts, was developing in the same part of India. The founder of Jainism, Lord Mahavira, was the contemporary of Lord Buddha. The founder of Buddhism and even Buddhist texts called Lord Mahavira an enlightened being. So these two religions, they have almost developed simultaneously. In the 6th century BCE and the preceding era, when both the schools thought were developing and spreading their horizon, no rivalry seemed to be existed between them. This was because of the fact that both religions almost believed in the same facts and philosophy of life. However, both differed on some of the views such as salvation and the soul, which led to their separate ways. So although they have developed simultaneously at this time, there seems to be no rivalry between them because most of the points were similar to them. Only at the same time there are certain diverging facts with regard to the aspect of view on salvation and the soul. Buddhism totally denies the permanency of a soul, whereas Jainism will uphold the permanency of the soul. So let us see what are the similarities between both of them, that is Buddhism and Jainism. First similarity we can draw is on God. Buddhism, the original Buddhist doctrine, does not entail any godly figures, though the later Buddhist sect introduced some godly figures. The Buddhists believe in the godlike figures or the bodhisattvas who take interest in the welfare of the world and work for its liberation. So a creator God concept, that is not there. So therefore the similarity between both of them, Buddhism and Jainism, is that Jainism, like Buddhism, Jainism also denies the existence of God, though they acknowledge the presence of jinas or kavalins who are higher than human beings in the status but subject to change and evolution. However, unlike bodhisattvas, the kavalins are rather indifferent to the prayers and problems of the and remain unaffected. So on the basis of God, something similar in both of them, Buddhism and Jainism, is the concept of God. So they do not accept a creator God, neither in Buddhism nor in Jainism. Then similarity on nirvana. Buddhism. In Buddhism, nirvana is the freedom from the cycle of rebirth, when a being turns into a state of non-being or shunya, loses its identity and becomes nothing. So the concept of nirvana, there is some agreement. In Jainism, nirvana is the state of moksha, where a being loses its identity and is free from the cycle of birth and death. So when we compare these two religions, Buddhism and Jainism, the similarity is on the concept of God and the concept of nirvana. Then what is liberation? On the aspect of liberation, Buddhism, the liberation is the path of liberation in Buddhism goes through good conduct and good deeds, as mentioned in the Eightfold Path. 4 noble truths, 5 perceptions, and the other moral conducts. So from the point of view, the liberation is through the Ashtanga Marga. Jainism, similarly, the path of liberation in Jainism is to follow right perception, right knowledge, and right conduct. One has to overcome the worldly desires and feelings to attain liberation or to become a perfect soul. So from the part of these aspects, that is God, then nirvana, then liberation, there is some similarity between them, similarities of. Then yogic practices. Buddhism emphasizes the practice of meditation and other forms of yoga to concentrate on the inner self. In Jainism as well, meditation and other yogic practices are essential for self-purification and liberation. So both do give value to yogas and yogic practices, concentration of the energy in order to focus on the self, inner self in Buddhism, and the liberation in Jainism. Then on non-violence, there is some agreement or similarity we can find. Buddhism is a peaceful religion with non-violence at the heart of its thought and behavior. Jainism, non-violence followed in action, thought, speech is the highest morale in Jainism. So for a Jain to be a Jain, he has to follow total ahimsa. It's an important, or the first one of the vrita, main vrita which they take, or the promise which they make, or the vow they make is that is non-injury, non-violence followed in action, thought and word. It's a must for a Jain. So many points on which we can find the similarity. Similarity in the concept of God, then the concept of nirvana, liberation, then yogic practices, and non-violence, the concept of non-violence. What are the difference in Buddhism and Jainism? On the aspect of karma, or on the understanding of karma, Buddhism believes in the universality of karma, which is the result of one's action. In Jainism also believe in the universality of karma and its effect on human beings. But unlike Buddhism, karma according to Jainism is not a mere effect on one's actions, but a real substance that flows into each individual's body or jiva. This karmic substance remains with the being until good contact and self-purification eliminates them. In Buddhism, there is no permanent self, whereas in Jainism, a permanent self is upheld. So that's going to be the major difference. The same way on karma. The understanding of karma in Buddhism is that Buddhism believes in the universality of karma, which is the result of one's actions. Jainism also believes in the universality of karma and its effect on human beings. But unlike Buddhism, there's a difference in Jainism. According to Jainism, it is not mere effects on one's actions, but a real substance that flows into the individual's body or jiva. This karmic substance remains with a being until good contact purifies and eliminates them. That is the aspect of karma, the understanding of karma in Buddhism and Jainism. The difference that we are trying to see. Then what about the soul, on the soul? In Buddhism, according to Buddhism, soul is an individuality that does exist in plants and animals, but not in non-living or inanimate things. So, according to Buddhism, soul is an individuality that does exist in plants and animals, but not in non-living and inanimate things. According to Jainism, soul is present in every animate and inanimate object of the universe, including its elements, earth, water, wind, and air. So a difference, we are trying to see the difference between Buddhism and Jainism. So on the aspect of karma, there is a difference. The aspect of soul, Buddhism totally denies any permanency to that, whereas Jainism will always uphold the permanency. On the status and evolution of individual beings. In Buddhism, after nirvana, there is no soul, but the individuality of the individual that passes into nothingness, which is beyond the description and speculation. In Jainism, after nirvana, the soul continues to remain as an individual soul, but in the highest state of purity and enlightenment. So there is a continuity of the soul in Jainism, whereas in Buddhism it is a shunyavada is brought about. The next difference is the survival and disappearance. Over a period of time, while Buddhism disappeared from Indian soil, Jainism survived in India with its teaching intact, mostly untouched by the overwhelming philosophy and practices of Hinduism, at the same time imparting to the latter some of its noblest ideas. So, survival and disappearance, although both of them began in Indian soil, Buddhism could not survive in India. It had to wander to different lands. Whereas Jainism remained within the Indian soil and survived. Besides, a major difference lies in the dominions of both these religions. Though both Buddhism and Jainism originated and developed individually in the same geographical area of India, but difference lies in their spread. While Buddhism crossed the frontiers of its motherland and went to other parts of the Indian subcontinent, Central Asia, Far Eastern countries, and parts of North America and Europe as well, whereas Jainism, on the other hand, remained confined to India and the land of its origin. So Jainism has not spread as the Buddhism has spread. It has crossed the frontiers, or it has spread to far areas. Now, just to say some comparisons and the differences which we have already seen. So with this, I think we can conclude the chapter on Buddhism and Jainism. So we have seen the three aspects here, that is, our three religions here, the materialism, Buddhism and Jainism. They are grouped into the heterodox religion because they do not agree to the authority of the scriptures, and therefore they are considered as the heterodox religion or unorthodox religion. And we have seen from the pure materialism to Buddhism and to Jainism, and the nuances of that, and the major theory of the Buddhists, that's the dependent origination. And then we have seen some of the points where they converge, similarities and differences of Buddhism and Jainism. So with this, the part of the semester for the third sem, that is coming to the close with these three aspects of the materialism, Buddhism and Jainism.